Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to watch. I'm going to try and make an educational, informative, and helpful video for you today. The topic of the video is buying your first car for a teen EV, for a teen driver. This is always a hot topic as kids come out of high school and maybe move on to college or university, or maybe find themselves needing a car because they get to a point in life where they've got their license and they just need to go further. Maybe it's for work, maybe it's for a relationship, but all of a sudden your kid who didn't used to drive now finds themselves licensed and ready to get on the road. At that point, if the parents are in a position to be a part of the buying process, or at least the choosing process, or will be purchasing the car, then it's really important to know what you're looking for and how to understand what to do in the search to get an electric car or to buy a car for your kid. So first things first, we're going to touch on the most important investment you'll probably ever make is into your kids. And as a father of 5, I've spent a lot of time investing in my kids. They are like the most important thing in the world to me. So I would imagine most parents, if you're watching, you're in the same position and you want to make sure that your child is in good hands when they're out on the street. And when I was young, I had no problem driving around a $500 car. A lot of my friends had cheap cars, and as you've got your first, you first got your license, there's not a lot of kids could afford anything real traditional, like fancy or whatever. So fast forward, we've got access to a ton of really cool cars at low prices. Like we have electric cars that start at $5,000. Whether that's right for your teen or not, we'll get into. But there's a wide variety of vehicles available for young drivers to get into that have a ton of cool and modern safety features that you might not know are available within the price range that you might be looking at. So first things first, I want to talk about accident data and young drivers. So it's a sad day for me because after I leave this presentation, I'm going to visit some of my dear friends I'm going to be attending a funeral for a 19-year-old young lady named Katie from Nanaimo. And it breaks my heart to see that another young person has died. So this, in a motor vehicle accident, I should say. And so this hits really close to home because we've all seen our kids be in a close call, or we've been in a close call. And, when your family's in the car and you just instantly fear for everybody's safety, it rips my heart out to see people getting hurt in cars. So I'm going to throw a few stats at you. So crash data reference, British Columbia, 2024, in British Columbia, we had 303,593 crashes in British Columbia. That's cars and motorcycles. In 2025, there were 307,440. And back in 2024, there were a lower number of total crashes because there were fewer people on the road, but British Columbia still saw 297 drivers killed in 2024. Now, the numbers are pretty staggering. On Vancouver Island, there were 5,820 injuries just in 2024, and 11 fatalities on the island alone. So the numbers are actually really, really bad. And if you think about it, we all know somebody who's been involved in a collision of some sort where somebody's been hurt. Maybe it's been you, or maybe it's been a family member or a friend. But either way, it is a tragedy, and the goal for us selling cars is to make sure those numbers keep going down. And this is an integral part of the conversation as we talk about what cars you can get for your kids. This is why I'm starting with this. In any case, yeah, it's a bad scene for car accidents, so we want to stay away from the accidents. Now, my name is Julian. I'm with Motorize Electric Vehicles. We've been selling electric vehicles on Vancouver Island exclusively since 2016. The business has been around since 2008. And we're located in Sidney, British Columbia, and we serve basically most of lower Vancouver Island for used electric cars. Okay, so today we're talking about buying the first car for the teen driver. At this time of year, we get a lot of people that come in, parents that come in, sometimes with the kids or without, and they say, listen, we've got a young driver in the household. We've got to get them on the street and going to school and back. What should we be looking at? And so we talk about a few different things like the battery size and how far the car can go for you, and what kind of use case your young student or child might be needing the car for. Most parents start with a gas car for their teen because you can pick up an affordable, decent-looking car, which we used to consider new and cool 25 years ago. You can get something for $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever. But when you start to take into account that the highest rate of injuries and fatalities in British Columbia in motor vehicle accidents is in the 16 to 21 age category, it really starts to make you think about, well, okay, well, what kind of car can I get for my kid that has really great safety features that's going to end up with a higher likelihood of them having a healthy and successful drive? Well, and so that's when we start to want to look at safety stuff. And the newer you go in cars, the more safety components and features and advanced driver assistance systems have been added over the years. So you can save money by going for a low-cost gas car in the beginning, but it's not a long-term solution. So in order to make a smarter and safer choice, we'll start to look at the running costs. Assuming you're going to be paying around $2 a liter for fuel, you can imagine that basically for every 100 kilometers the vehicle drives, somebody's going to be paying $20 to run that car. 10 liters per 100K is about normal for an average gas car. So instantly you've got a price tag associated with every kilometer driven in that car. And as a young driver begins their journey into the world and has to learn everything from scratch, hopefully with some driver education from mom and dad or a school, but they're going to encounter all sorts of things on the road. And the goal is to have them spending not only the least amount of money to go out and experience everything on the road, but also have a car that will keep them safe. So I would say that at bare minimum, you should be looking for a car that has anti-lock brakes and traction control, and probably not a real super fast model to get out of the gate. So parents come in and they look at things like a Nissan Leaf to begin with. It's a very common starter car that would allow a short range around town, maybe around 100 kilometers. This is a $10,000 car that would allow your young driver to be mobile and be able to charge at public charging stations, charge at home, maybe charge at work or charge at school. So, you know, you can get around in a really low cost scenario. So for example, we'll just put a Leaf on here. This is one end of the spectrum. We'll have the $5,000 Nissan Leaf, which, if you will, would be like having a vehicle with a leash on it, because that car's not going to go very far. This is at the bottom end of the spectrum for a used EV. And this would allow your young driver to have a range of somewhere between 50 and 100 kilometers, perfect for zipping around the city. There'll be no road trips, no weekends away, nothing like that. It's just a glorified grocery getter. A car like this would cost about $1.50 to $2 to fill up on home power. So it's like the ultimate low-cost commuter. On the other end of the spectrum that we might look at for teen drivers would be here we'll put Leaf. And there's lots of stuff in the middle, but on the other end of the spectrum, we would put a 25K Model 3. And there's a ton of stuff that's in the middle here, but we're going to use these two because they represent the bookends of the spectrum for common choices. So we talked about the running costs. Any electric car that you drive is going to cost substantially less than a gas car. And I've done another video that did the breakdown that shows that an average gas car is going to cost you about, I think, $5,600 or something a year more to operate than a Nissan Leaf, for example. So it's an instant win. If you get into a little bit of economics, if you put your kid in a gas car and they're working a job and they have to pay to fuel the vehicle and they're making, let's say, $20 an hour, all of a sudden they're actually working for a huge amount of their time just to afford to put gas in the tank to go to work and back. So you're literally burning your time. And as a young person without a lot of earning potential, this is a really bad, transactional affair. It's really a no-win. But if you put them in an electric car and they can charge the car at home and only consume $1 or $2 worth of hydro every day, or maybe less, well, it totally changes the metrics and will allow your kid to save money that they've worked and paid taxes on rather than blowing it all on fuel. We got to get them to stop drinking Red Bull as well, but that's a different thing. That's even more expensive per liter than fuel is. But anyway, when we talk about used EVs, if the bare bones goal is to have safe and reliable transport for your kid, the Leaf will actually get the job done. And there are many other EVs that are, in the $10,000, $15,000, and $20,000 price range that are very good. However, the Tesla is the ultimate choice, and I'll tell you why. And it's not just that I think you should spend $25,000 on a car for your kid. It's about what the car can do for you. So Tesla, unlike all the other auto manufacturers, has actually built a couple of supercomputers into the vehicle. And if you can think about how far driver safety stuff has evolved over the years, the Tesla with full self-drive is at the absolute pinnacle, because these cars are capable of fully 100% autonomous driving, and they are many, many, many times safer than a human. So What that means is if you have anyone in your family, for example, this applies to anybody really, but if you have a young driver who is inexperienced, or any driver that's inexperienced, and you want to be able to put them in a car, and you don't want to think of them becoming anxious or flustered or aggravated by things that happen in the car, maybe due to inexperience or maybe due to an anxiety issue or for whatever reason, if you don't want to think about that person having an anxious time behind the driver's seat or in the driver's seat, then you should think about getting them a Tesla with full self-drive. What that means in practical terms, because I've recently discovered nobody knows what full self-drive is, but I'll write it down for you. Now, full self-drive, I will tell you, we're going to call it FSD, has a subscription of $99 per month Canadian. And that means that if you have a Tesla and it has hardware 3, which most of ours do, or better, and you want to have full self-drive in the car, you just get in the car and you touch on the car icon on the screen, you touch on self-drive, you touch on upgrades, you select self-drive, and it will bill your credit card $99. At that point, the car has now become autonomous. And that means that whoever sits in the driver's seat, who enters an address, or home or work or whatever, can just tap a button on the screen that says full self-drive, or it says start self-drive. The vehicle will back in and out of parking stalls. It will carefully look before it pulls out onto the street. It'll be mindful of cyclists and pedestrians and strange things that are flying down the road. It can handle construction sites and crosswalks. It can handle school zones. It pays attention to the speed limit. It is actually a fully trained driver that's been trained on billions of miles of human driving data. Where this comes together and where it really makes a difference for parents, thinking about it from a parent's point of view, if you're thinking about your kid driving. When I've taught each of my kids to drive, and I went to a driving school, which I thought was amazing. I learned a ton of really great stuff. But when I've always been trying to help my kids learn new things driving, it's always for your safety. I want you to slow down in advance of the four-way stop, and here's the reason why. I want you to protect the distance between you and another car when you're coming to a red light on the highway, and here's the reason why. And it's always like I'm trying to instruct and teach and share my wisdom because I've been driving for a long time, and I want to share that with them. When you put a driver in a car with full self-drive, you are getting billions of miles of driving experience, which has been instilled into the car. So that car has seen billions of miles worth of accidents and good data and knows the difference between them. And at that point, should the driver choose to use FSD at the touch of a button, then that driver now has unlimited skills and amazing potential to avoid accidents and remain totally aware of the surroundings. And that means that the car will take over the driving duties entirely. And you can trust it. And trust me, you can come down here and we'll show you today. It's easy peasy. Now, what that means for your kid is if they're a little bit tired, or if they've got a little anxiety, or if they've worked a long shift, or if they've got some people in the back seat that are causing a ruckus and it's very distracting, or if it's pouring rain and the visibility is terrible and the wipers are terrible. I could go on forever. There's a million scenarios that have led to human-caused crashes, and they're easy to observe in hindsight. But when you put your kid in a car with FSD and the FSD is doing the driving, all of a sudden the vehicle will be piloted in a smooth and consistent and safe and legal fashion that offers the utmost amount of protection to the cabin occupants and the people outside the vehicle. That means your kid will be less likely to slide off the road, less likely to hit a pedestrian, less likely to be speeding. And in the stats I was reading earlier, the 16 to 21-year-olds who are most likely to be involved in collisions in British Columbia, they are the highest accident rate. The leading cause of accidents is speed. Now, I want to talk about that back in the 80s, the government realized there had to be a drinking driving counterattack. We all saw that. The reason for that was because the amount of the population that was drinking and driving was unacceptably high. It should be 0, and it was higher than 0. So there were a lot of fatalities due to drinking and driving. And in British Columbia, the law enforcement did the drinking driving counterattack, and it worked really, really well. So we went from, I think it was around 2,500 accident or fatalities a year in Canada at that time. And over a 10 or 15 year period, the fatalities went down. But when cell phones became ubiquitous and young drivers hit the roads in big numbers with the distraction of cell phones, the number of accidents, injuries, and fatalities climbed again, seriously. And so the police had to start targeting cell phone users. The reality is young people and, well, everybody uses their phones. Now, the best way to be driving is to be not distracted. But if your driver is going to be distracted for any number of reasons, at that point, you would prefer to have somebody else driving so that your distracted kid is not responsible for moving a 4,000-pound object flying down the highway. So FSD is what is changing the statistics in Canada and the US and Australia and Europe now, and is taking those accident stats and bringing them down again, because drivers are very distracted. And although many cars have a lot of advanced safety features that are good and do avoid collisions, there's nothing on the road that can actually think and drive like a Tesla with FSD. So we've seen this, a bit of a roller coaster in injuries and deaths. And now we should have crossed the point where we can get back down again. The reason why this is our top pick is because you can put FSD on the Tesla Model 3. Another reason why we like the $25,000 Tesla Model 3 is because the chassis is designed to last 1 million miles. That doesn't mean that the car is going to last on its original battery for 1 million miles. It's not going to, but replacement used batteries are $2,000 to $3,000 for these cars, and each battery in one of these cars, which will probably last 300,000 to 400,000 K in a Tesla Model 3, maybe longer, will probably save you $50,000 in fuel costs while you're getting a great driving experience as well. So there is the lowest cost of ownership with the Tesla, the safest software possible on any car. Now we can talk about future proofing. If you buy a car today from any manufacturer that's not a Tesla, the vehicle that you buy will be the vehicle that you use for some time to come. However, the Tesla, actually Rivian and Lucid do offer over-the-air software updates, but they're in an ultra-luxury category. And so we're going to leave those out because you're unlikely to buy a Rivian or a Lucid for your student, but you are likely to buy a Tesla. The reason that we talk about future-proofing is because Tesla offers over-the-air updates, which allow the latest software, including safety improvements, to roll out to all the cars in the Tesla fleet for free on a regular basis. That adds a lot of value. Now, given that 40% or 45% of new vehicles sold in British Columbia today are plug-in electric vehicles, and the number of gas cars being sold today, although it still is at 55% hybrids and gas, 45% electric, we can see the numbers for electric adoption are skyrocketing and the numbers for gas and hybrids are plummeting. So if you're buying a car and you want to put that into service for your family for 2 or 3 or 5 years, you will get better resale value out of the Tesla because it is future-proofed. It is a software-defined vehicle, whereas everything that's not a Tesla will lose value more quickly because they cannot update themselves going into the future. That's the difference between a hardware-defined vehicle, which is kind of fixed in time. What it was the day it was built is what it was, and a software-defined vehicle like the Tesla on this side, which is able to change its function through software. That's a big deal. Let's see if I've got anything else here. Boy, lots of cool stuff. Yeah, we talked about all the safety stuff, so that's good. You can expect the Tesla to be the overall favorite family vehicle, not only for the in-town stuff, but if somebody wants to leave town and go on a road trip, for example, or perhaps if you're leaving Victoria and you might be heading up to Lake Cowichan or to Tofino or Campbell River, you want to go see some family, it's absolutely no problem to travel in any EV with a large battery, but in a Tesla, the travel experience is much easier. I also want to mention that as a parent, you have controls with the Tesla. The Tesla has parental controls. So if you give your child use of a Tesla, you can send them a digital key through your phone. They don't need a physical key, so they're not going to lose anything. And you know they're not going to leave home without their phone, so their phone is the key for the car. But that means that on your app, you can see where the vehicle is. You can control some degree of functionality of the vehicle. You can make sure it's locked and you can make sure it is where it's supposed to be. You can put a speed limit on the vehicle. And if they exceed that speed limit, you'll get a text message. So they can't really hide from mom and dad police. So there's a whole host of reasons why going to a Tesla will actually be the lowest friction solution for your family, not only to get a student around, but maybe to add another vehicle into the household for regular use, whether it's for shopping on the weekends, running errands, or just being mom and dad's taxi. Typically what happens when people start with the first electric car in the household, they soon after, if it's a busy household, come in and say, you know, we had a hybrid or we had a gas vehicle, but we're no longer using it as much as we thought we would. And we're really using the EV a lot, to the point that now we actually need 2 EVs because nobody wants to put fuel in the other car. It's just too much money. So sometime between 3 and 6 months after people's first EV purchase, we often see them come back to trade in their gas car and leave with another EV. That pretty much wraps up my presentation today.